Hi, everybody. I'm here with my wonderful friend, Andrew Harvey, and we are here to share a preview of his upcoming class on the mystical power of women, which begins in October 18th. And I wanted to introduce the class by saying how thrilled I am that he's doing a class on the mystical power of women at a time when women are roaring on the planet. Whether you're looking in Iran or you're looking at the women now rising in Russia against the war, or you're looking at women rising in the United States against the abortion ruling.
And in India, protesting against the crazy
It
rapes.
is something is on fire in the spirit of women. And so this wonderful class on the mystical power of women couldn't be more timely. So I'm going to start by asking Andrew, tell me a little bit about what inspired the class.
My whole life has been dedicated to the divine feminine. The Dalai Lama said, the world will be saved by spiritually empowered women and the men that have the courage and the humility to listen to them and be guided by them, like I am guided by you.
Oh, well.
And it's really, this class is just an expression of this passion that I've had and a deep desire to convey the essence of what I've learned. And it's a class for men as well as women.
So you've chosen for wonderful women from I think an enormous wealth of women mystics that you could choose. So I'm going to ask you to describe each one. Let's start with the first one you chose.
The first one I chose, and they're all from the Christian mystical tradition. The first one is your beloved and my beloved Mother Mary.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
and I think the Madonna, of course, we could do a course just on her, but give me one jewel.
The jewel for the Madonna is the jewel of soft, radical power. What I'm going to do is basically detonate the patriarchal vision of Mary, because the patriarchal vision of Mary has made her out to be a sweet, obedient blonde. Mary was not blonde. Mary was extremely radical, and I'm going to present it in as exciting and powerful a way as possible.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. I never thought she was blonde. Well, I did growing up, but I think I have always, since I was a child, been fascinated with her apparitions and her miracles and her presence. And I took a group to Medjugorje, and I just everything about the Madonna is so incredible to me. So, and number two.
Number two is Mary Magdalene. Very simply, there's a huge revolution taking place at the core of Christianity, and that is all to do with the restoration and reinterpretation of Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene, I'm writing a book about her at the moment, and I'm finding out really that she was the wife of Jesus, and it's time we face that Jesus was sexual and that he redeemed sexuality and she taught him how to. And so I'm going to be really exploring not only Mary in the Gospels, Mary in the Gnostic Gospels, and this astounding new Gospel of Mary Magdalene that has been published in 2010, the Gospel of the Beloved Companion, to bring her back. And the jewel that will give is the jewel of divine passion. And God knows we all need that.
Well, you know, I think that the role Mary Magdalene plays is probably among the most threatening role within the church.
Well, they wrote her out basically of the story. They made her out to be a prostitute, which was insane. She was an adept, a deep, great spiritual adept.
And I think it's so tied to the fear that the church had. Of the physicalness of Jesus.
Completely.
That he was, in fact, a man.
Yes.
And a human being. And that...
and a sexual human being. How could he redeem everything if he wasn't redeeming the most important part of human life, the sexual part of human life?
And of course, we don't have time. We would be here from now until next year going into all the impact
the agony
that has had on forming Western sexuality.
Oh God!
But You've got that. And who's number 3?
Number 3 is our mutual friend, Hadovich of Antwerp. I've spent 3 years learning medieval Flemish, bits enough to be able to read this great, wild, sublime woman whose voice has been silenced for 6 centuries, Hadovich of Antwerp. And the jewel that I have discovered in her is the jewel of nobility, because she's passionate about really turning up nobly in life. And nobody writes about this nobility more passionately than you. And you championed this new book of mine, Love is Everything, and I'm so grateful to you. But you got her like a rash, didn't you?
Well, I think the message I want to share about Hadovich and why I think it's so inspiring for your audience for this class is that we don't emphasize what it means to be noble. Right. That's something there. But
you hardly ever hear the word, and yet it's such an important word for all of us.
And what it means to understand the power of love within you as a force that drives you to do irrational actions on behalf of others and on behalf of yourself. So I think that when it comes to contemporary mysticism, which is what this class is about, it's not about having, profound mystical experiences. It's about discovering profoundness in yourself.
Right.
And that you're capable of
extraordinary acts far beyond what you think you're capable of when you connect with the force of love.
Right. And you have an extraordinary interior that is awakening. And I think that there is an awakening now that is a call to our collective survival. And absolutely. Who is number 4?
Well, just before we go into number 4, I think nobility is the key to the nature of the soul. And when you connect with the soul and the power of love and find out your nobility, you can be a source of tremendous loving transformation of the planet. That's what's so thrilling about Hadovich for me.
I agree with that. I think there's so often that people have a sense that I can't do anything.
Right.
What can I do?
Right.
But what can I do? But what can I do? I hear that all the time. Or a phrase that really gets to me is when someone will say, someone should do something about this.
Yes.
And I have often said to someone,
what about
you?
Yes.
What about you? You're the one noticing this. And if you weren't noticing it, you're noticing it for a reason. Why are you not doing something? Well, what can I do? And inevitably they think, well, immediately they fall into the fear pit, or that action takes money, or that they don't want their life to become uncomfortable.
Right.
And people do not get how powerful a single choice is, or a single action is. So that's what I love about
when people say, what can I do? I say that's the wrong question. It said, who shall I be to be able to do?
Bingo.
And that's why this passion for nobility of Hadovich is so important to be infused by.
Right.
So,
how do I see this as an invitation to change something?
Yes.
What one thing can I change? And number 4.
Number 4 is someone who's taken over my entire life, and her name is Elizabeth of the Trinity, and I've been raving on about Elizabeth to you. Elizabeth, it's very easy to enchant Carolyn with Carmelite nuns because she loves the Carmel as much as I do. Elizabeth was a Carmelite nun. She lived between 1880 and 1906. She died tragically young of a dreadful disease. And in her last 8 months, when she was in agony, she wrote some of the greatest mystical masterpieces in Christian literature. Basically, she refused to be a victim. Mm-hmm. And she used this tremendous suffering to become what she called a praise of glory. She borrowed it from St. Paul. And she used the great agony that she was in to transform her whole being into a living flame of love. So the jewel that she's offering us is the jewel of praise in and through everything. And I think that's one of the great keys to how we approach this tragic, terrifying situation we're in, not to get despondent, but to use it as a challenge to transform ourselves into joy, into praise, so that we can constantly encourage and inspire others. This is what I'm trying to do with all my flaws and follies, and I know it's what you're trying to do.
Well, I think that I think it's not an underestimate. How do I want to say this? I'm not an alarmist, and yet I'm alarmed.
Yes.
At
if you're not alarmed, you're dead. Yeah.
At where the world is now.
Oh yeah.
And that we are looking at climate catastrophes. We're looking at
the
pandemics,
rise of authoritarianism everywhere.
Authoritarianism, fascism.
Right.
Somehow people are responding that when there's such chaos in the world, they retreat into control.
Right.
And they retreat into mad control.
Right.
Cruelty. And cruelty and barbarianism.
Right.
And now we are actually listening to people on TV saying, is Putin going to go nuclear?
Right.
So we're on the brink of wondering, well, maybe he won't use the bomb, but he will bomb the nuclear power plants and let Ukraine just go into
insanity.
So we've reached levels of human insanity that is quite the opposite of the choices humanity should be making.
And someone like Elizabeth chooses exactly the opposite. She's given this tragic disease, but instead of choosing insanity, she chooses to be the most extraordinary flame of encouragement and love. That's so important.
But you see, we have that tragic disease.
Right.
This is a different type of psychic tragic disease.
We've got Addison's disease.
Right.
The world has Addison's disease.
It's like a psychic tragic disease of madness. We're so filled with lies and we're so filled with contamination. We're in a psychic disease state.
That's why I love her so much.
And that's why
I'm presenting her.
And that's why I think that the mystical skills that these women had and have to offer are so profoundly powerful.
Yes.
Even in the quietness of your life, their skills offer a way to respond to what's happening in the world that is not a quiet response. It's a light-filled response.
Right.
And that's the power of light over the dark.
Absolutely. And this course is not just for women. That's why a guy is giving it. Because I have learned and continue to learn so much from these four women. And I think men who really want to be part of this great transformation need to learn from these extraordinary women and their courage and their soft, radical power to infuse their own actions with wisdom.
Absolutely. Well, the course begins October 18th, and I hope you'll join because it's going to be wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Andrew, for coming up with this beautiful class. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in October.